All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. And of course, Pig and a Pickle, proud sponsor of the Krug Show. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in Marin, and they're open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Well, let's talk a little bit in this 49er video about the offseason grades, because the offseason pretty much is complete. I mean, the Niners may sign a key guy here or there before camp. I can't imagine they're going to spend too much. They might sign an edge rusher, which could have a huge impact on the season. But for the most part, the free agent period is come and gone. The draft is come and gone. And their offseason is, let's say, 99% complete. So this is a good time for these kinds of evaluations to come out. Let's talk about them. Now, neither Bleacher Report nor Pro Football Focus gave the 49ers particularly high grades. Pro Football Focus gave he didn't really break it down as far as free agency or draft. They just said, altogether, their off-season. And their off-season grade for the Niners was a C. I personally think it was quite a bit better than that, but that's what they gave them. And Bleacher Report came out and said that their free agency period was a B, that their draft was a D plus, panned their draft, didn't like their draft at all, and overall gave them a C. So both of them kind of gave them overall a C, which is, fair, middle of the road. It's not great, that's for sure. So let's kind of go into, sum this up, what they did, what they didn't do. So free agency wise, they added Javon Hargrave. He was the big money guy of the offseason. I think they're attacking free agency actually the right way, because the wrong way is to sign a bunch of free agents en masse. The right way is to sign one great free agent and then let 3 or 4 mediocre free agents walk. And then you benefit in the compensatory picks. And the 49ers will. The 49ers will have 3 or 4 extra compensatory picks in the 2024 draft because of how they attacked free agency. And I think that game plan is really a good game plan. Go get difference makers in free agency. Go pay guys. Because why is it important? Because it's a lot about the culture of your room and your organization. In free agency, you have to overpay to attract guys from other teams. So if you pay mediocre players more money than the players you have in your room, there's a lot of times there's problems in the room. So that's why it makes sense. The last couple of years, it makes sense to go after one high price guy, because you're then going and taking a player who's probably better than the other players in the room. And you don't have that, well, who's better? And why is the new guy getting paid more than the guys who were here before? Well, in this case, you're paying Charvarius Ward more because he's better than your other corners. You're paying Javon Hargrave more because he's better than your other defensive tackles. And so I like the game plan of invest huge in a great free agent. Go get a difference maker. Last year it was Mooney Ward. He made a difference. This year it's Javon Hargrave. I think he's going to make a difference. But the 49ers didn't just stop there in free agency. They added Sam Darnold. They added Isaiah Oliver. Oliver's probably going to be the starter at the nickel corner. They added John Feliciano, who John Lynch described as a glue piece. I love Feliciano. He can play center. He can play guard. He's tough as nails, and he's versatile. They added a kicker in Zane Gonzalez. They since, of course, replaced him with Jake Moody, or at least have a rookie kicker that we think is going to beat out Gonzalez and Jake Moody. They added Cleveland Farrell and Austin Bryant, and they re-signed Tayshaun Gibson. So that was pretty much, and that wasn't only it. They added Chris Conley at wide receiver, who runs in the 4-3s. They added Matt Pryor on the offensive line, giving them another veteran tackle. They also added Miles Hartsfield from Carolina as another defensive back, safety / nickel corner / special teamer, a guy that Steve Wilkes really liked from Carolina and feels like has a great chance to make the football team and make them better. So I really kind of like what they did in free agency. Why? Because in Javon Hargrave, you added a guy who had 57 pressures. That's more than double the amount that any other 49er defensive tackle produced last year. So to bring in Javon Hargrave, I thought was really, really good. I would have given them like a B plus, A minus, just simply because, one, You landed a top tier free agent. You took him away from the Philadelphia Eagles. You added a guy that has to be double teamed on your defensive line. You also added some other free agents, and yet your compensatory formula is still in your favor, and you're going to wind up with 3 or 4 compensatory picks. So to me, how you work the compensatory angle is a major part of free agency. And also, are you, what kind of chemistry are you going to have? If you got to sign 12 free agents, guess what? There's going to be guys who are making more money who just walked into the room who probably aren't as good as the guys you have. But if you add Javon Hargrave, it doesn't matter that you're paying him the most because he's the best. And I don't think it interrupts your chemistry. So I think overall, I would have given them more like a B plus, A minus. But Bleacher Report gave their free agency a B overall. Now let's get to the draft. Neither side loved the draft. I mean, Pro Football Focus just grades the whole thing out as a C. And they're like, hey, you know what? When they talked about the Niners in the draft, they said, too many reaches for the 49ers, the kicker in the 3rd round. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not as concerned about the kicker in the 3rd round. One, it was the compensatory round, so it's really more like the beginning of the 4th. The 4th round is typically the round that teams invest in kickers, specialists, punters, etc. So the fact that they took the kicker at at right around 100 when maybe he could have gone 15, 20 picks later, not a big deal. They didn't have a 4th round pick, and they had a real severe need at kicker. So they got the best kicker in the market, if you believe the draft prognosticators, and Jake Moody. So will he do it? Will he not? Only time's going to tell on that. And I don't scout kickers nor predict them. So I'm just hoping for the best on that one. But I won't ping them necessarily for reaching for a kicker because I don't think it's that much of a reach. 10, 20 picks. Okay. Did I love it at the time? No, but overall, the one thing about the 49ers fans and the kicker is that 49er fans have been spoiled, right? We've had Robbie Gould. He's never missed in the playoffs. So now you got a kicker in Jake Moody who's never missed in the college football playoffs, and his nickname's Money, and he's considered by all Michigan fans to be the best kicker in the history of Michigan football. So we'll find out. But he looks good on paper, and I won't necessarily ding them for that. And then overall, they give the draft. Bleacher Report gives the draft a D plus. Let's go through the draft a little bit. Jair Brown was the 3rd round pick out of Penn State. I really think this guy has a very good chance of beating out Tayshaun Gibson and becoming a stalwart in the Niners secondary at free safety. Really, really like that pick. Then they went with Jake Moody and Cameron Latu from Alabama. The Latu pick I'm not crazy about, but he does have kind of a basketball history to him. He's pretty athletic. He's pretty rangy. He I think, flew beneath the radar among a lot of elite athletes at Alabama. We'll see. I was not a huge fan of Latu with that pick there. But then, if you go into the rest of their draft, they actually got some pretty good football players. And you got to include the guys that they got after the draft. But Darrell Luter Jr., they got a nice press man corner with experience and maturity and size and strength. And I think he's a guy that might be able to play right away. They got 2 really solid linebackers in D. Winters, who was the MVP of the national semifinal. TCU upset Michigan. Winters was a big reason why. He shoots gaps. He's 4.5 speed. He's got great instincts. He's interesting. Now, he didn't look awesome in the minicamp, but, we'll see come training camp if he's in a little bit better shape. The guy who did look great at the minicamp was Jalen Graham, the 7th round pick out of Purdue. And Scott McLuhan is already on record as saying that he really likes Graham. I've liked Graham for a couple of years now. And I think that's a really interesting 7th round pick. I think it's great value in the 7th round. I think he's got a great chance to make the team. Robert Beal's the probably boom or bust guy. He played at Georgia. He runs 4.4. He led them in sacks 2 years ago. He had a sack in the national championship game. As I said, he's 6'4", 250, and he runs in the 4.4s. So he didn't play. He was kind of a specialty, situational player for Georgia, but I don't even really hold that against him. He's a 5-star high school recruit. He's really, really interesting. And then, the other guys they got also are interesting. Ronnie Bell at the rookie minicamp showed incredible ball skills. Now, I don't know if he's going to make the team, but that guy can catch. He absolutely can. And his hands are as good as any receiver the Niners have. So he stood out to me as far as the catches he made and the ease with which he made them really stood out. He doesn't look like a lot. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest guy, but the ball skills are top level for sure. And Ronnie Bell's going to make some plays this summer. Then you got to look also at some of the other guys. I mean, Braden Willis in the seventh round, really interesting player. Maybe he's a fullback. Maybe he's a tight end. He looks like a player. And then when you went to the mini camp and you watch some of the undrafted guys, they kind of hit on some of these guys. Ilm Manning, the former left tackle at Hawaii, really looks like a nice player. Now, he's not a tackle. He's probably a guard, maybe a center. But he looked good. He looked really good. Joey Fisher, they paid him $130,000 guaranteed from Shepherd to be a tackle, guard, center prospect, very versatile. He had a hard time getting through the rookie minicamp because of heat on a 70-degree day. The heat was too much for him, but he's an interesting guy this summer for sure to watch. That's on the offensive side. The two rookie running backs that they got, Ronald Awatt and Kalen Laburn, both those guys are legit. Laburn started at Florida State. He was a highly rated high school prospect. Awatt, really athletic kid who played at UTEP, and in just watching him, he's got great cutting ability. Both those guys look like NFL running backs to me. Jack Coletto, the fullback from Oregon State, is very versatile, and I think he will challenge for a roster spot. And then on defense, the guy that to me, or the two guys that really stood out are Deshaun Jameson, the cornerback return man from Texas, who played 5 years for the Longhorns, and he's an elite return guy, and he's a really tenacious little corner. Now, he's not big. He's 5'10", but he definitely comes up aggressively against the run. He's fun to watch, and he's an elite return guy. And then Spencer Wagee, I think the Niners really got something in Spencer Wagee. Defensive end, 166, 10-yard split, comes firing out of his stance. Great hand usage, good body lean, productive. Had a great final year there at North Dakota State. So I think when you factor in not just the draft, I think it's easy to look. If your premise was they got to get a right tackle in the draft, and you don't, and then they drafted a kicker in the third round and didn't draft any tackles, it's easy to be like, oh, they swung and missed on the draft. But really what they did was they just went for guys that they wanted, that John Lynch and Adam Peters wanted, that Kyle Shanahan wanted, that the Niners staff really wanted. How it's going to play out as far as draft value, I get it. Believe me, I get it. When they got a D+, I got that. They took a kicker in the third round. They didn't have a first or a second. They didn't take a tackle. And a lot of people felt like that was a primary need. So that's why they got such a low mark. But I think when you go back and look at this draft class and you factor in the undrafted rookies that are in this class as well, I think that grade is going to go from a D+ to a C+, maybe even a B-. So overall, Pro Football Focus gives them a C. Bleacher Report overall gave them a C. I actually have a little bit more hope than they do. I'll give them a C+, B-, in that range. I think I think the Niners offseason has been better than Pro Football Focus thinks it is. I think their draft is worlds better than Bleacher Report sees it as. But all these things are going to be fleshed out over time. And nothing, today is it's so early on. We haven't even gotten to training camp yet, and we're evaluating the health of the offseason. But I'd say both those grades are a tad low. They're not insanely low. It's not like, oh, they deserved an A and they got a C. I wouldn't say that. I would say they probably deserved a B-, C+, and they got a C, and Bleacher Report gave their draft a D+. So overall, I would say 49ers offseason, in my mind, is going to be B-, C+ range. But according to Pro Football Focus and Bleacher Report, they're giving them a solid C. All right. Hope you enjoyed the 49er video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krueger Show. Check them out in Emeryville or Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in Marin, Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. And thanks to all of you for supporting the Krueger Show on YouTube.